Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the SaaS Founder Show. It's Tony Zayas, joined by my co-host, Andy Halko. Andy, how are the bees treating you there in the hive?
Pretty good. I got stung maybe 15, 20 times, but my reality is not too bad. I can't complain. How are you doing?
Doing well. So we got the team together there yesterday, so that was exciting. And we're going through a retreat this week and team building and strategy, all that kind of stuff. So that's been cool. So that's why I mentioned the bees, because
everybody was over, and I was just instead of giving out 401k matches, I give out bee stings. what we do. So
build character builder.
That's right. So I'm excited about today's show. We've got something really cool, something I enjoy a lot. Can you tell me a little bit about our founder and who we're talking to?
Yeah, for sure. So no, I think we have a great one this week. It's Kunal Patel, and he's the co-founder and CTO at BrandXR. And BrandXR is a platform that makes creating and distributing immersive augmented reality and virtual reality experiences super easy so organizations can educate, market, or sell their products. So a really hot area that to me is always fascinating to talk. So with that, I will bring him on. Hey, Kunal, how you doing?
Hey, really good.
Awesome.
Really
yeah, well, thank you for taking out the time to join us. Super excited to hear, just the whole story and what you guys are up to. But just to get started, can you tell us what's the origin story? Where did you come up with the concept and how did it come to life?
Sure. So my background is in technology, is in 3D and game development. So I've just been in that world for a very long time. So I'm very familiar with like big teams, even small indie teams, and a diverse set of like talent, like 3D artists, 2D artists, UI UX experts, programmers, designers, producers, like a whole mix of people that all have to make this like cohesive, interactive product. Like it's probably one of the hardest things to make a video game, and so I just knew that it takes like a lot of people, a lot of time and money to do. And we had a project that we were working on for NASA, actually, for the Kennedy Space Center, where we were building 3 virtual reality experiences for them. And we saw that it took a lot of money, it took a lot of time, and the team size was like, getting really, really big. And so the project went off well, it completed well, the product like looked amazing, but it was like very unruly, very cumbersome to like manage and operate that, during that period. And, we just thought, okay, definitely VR and AR and these like immersive experiences is definitely what people prefer when they go through it. It's like an amazing way to teach something or entertain somebody, but it just takes way too much time. And when I needed some VR headsets, actually, like some branded cardboard VR headsets. And when I found a company in California that produced those, I actually went there and visited, and then I met the founder of that company, and we started talking about this problem about it taking too long. And we were like, we should have something kind of like Squarespace or Wix or Canva, where it's just so easy to make something without knowing how to code. And when you can just drag and drop something, that would be so much easier to do. And then a lot of people would want to do this. And he was telling me like, hey, I'm no programmer, I wish I could do this. I have so many ideas. And he's like, but you have this huge team that has to execute this. And I'm like, I would love I would love to do this myself, like way faster as well. So it really began there. And then it also turned out that both of us were from Detroit, like both of our childhoods were from there. So we just never met each other as kids. And then so we just kind of hit it off, and we are like, hey, want to start a company together? and then we went from there. So BrandXR really started as Brand VR and then became BrandXR, and it was all about creating that no code way of creating a 3D immersive experience.
And I think what's interesting, you were in that business, and I think a lot of really interesting ideas come from when you build something that almost takes what you did out of necessity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so was that kind of the thought process is, look, yeah, it does take all this time and effort to do it, but if I can build something that pretty much puts my old business out of business,
Yeah.
it's something really valuable.
Oh, totally. Like, I've always, I mean, sure, every founder like says this, they consider themselves innovative, but like, you end up in this situation where like, if you are too set in your ways, then the entire industry is going to, move past you. Right. So like maybe it, for the different projects we worked on, like one of them took 9 months. And so it's like, how do we take something that took 9 months and turn it into something that we can build in 9 days or 9 hours or 9 minutes? And like, that's really what we were thinking, is like, we need to do that.
Yeah.
And some other people might be afraid of that. They might say like, oh, that's going to take away jobs, or that's going to take away, it's going to be reductive. It's not going to be good. But no, I think like that's better, because the amount of content that's going to be needed is going to be so much greater. And then we can focus in on like bigger and more complex things. So we were definitely pushing for that,
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of these tools that people create like that end up being used by those companies to just be more efficient, innovative, move faster, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
I'm kind of curious about like the evolution, because I had met a founder 5 years ago that was thinking about this idea of like low code in the VR space.
Yeah.
But I think they were too early.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I'm sure the technology, I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, is that part of it, is that you're now at maybe a little bit more of a turning point for something like this?
Yes. Yeah. And I think like that is a key thing that a lot of startups should be aware of, is that sometimes the timing is not right. Like you may actually be a complete futurist. They should call you Nostradamus, but like if the timing is not right in the industry, in the marketplace, you could also be caught in a bad situation, because you have to wait it out. You have to wait for the right hardware to come into the marketplace, for people to be educated enough. A lot of times when I give an analogy for like where we are in this industry, this shift to augmented reality and 3D, I kind of say it's like the mid 90s, where everybody's using the yellow pages to like look up things, and then there's this thing called the internet that's coming out, and then you have some people that are like, I don't get it. Who's going to go to this TV and type in www.something.com when they can just open up a book and see my full color page ad? This is stupid, right? And then like a few years later, like if you're not on the internet and you're only on the yellow pages, like you're an idiot, you're a dinosaur.
You're right.
So if you're dead, you're about to. And so we're in that phase where it's like, okay, some of the innovators are using augmented reality or VR to sell their products or give a better idea. For the people that experience it, they're like, whoa, this is amazing. And then for others, it's just like, I don't know, why don't I just have like a bunch of pictures on a web page or maybe a video, and that's good enough for now. But that's good enough for now in the same way that, the ad in the yellow pages was good enough for then too. So we're trying to prevent a business mass extinction event. Whenever these platform shifts happen, it's like, giant asteroid is hitting, and then a bunch of old dinosaurs die, and then the new breed grows. That just keeps happening, with the internet and e-commerce, and then smartphones and things like that. We're just on that next cusp, and if we pull it off, people can just subscribe, to our SaaS product, and then be able to build the content they need.
Yeah, I won't point out that you just called a bunch of business owners, dinosaurs that are going to be extinct. But
yeah,
no, I totally get your point, and I would say would you think you're really democratizing the idea of virtual reality in a way, is because you're making it more accessible for a much wider audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of this is realizing that we can't solve all the problems. And like you mentioned, in the past, like maybe the timing wasn't right with that other startup. We started as Brand VR. So this in this 2016, 2017 timeframe, we were Brand VR, and the thinking was like, okay, a VR is going to take off, but then it didn't. It did. The Gartner hype cycle, it took longer, and they even called that like VR winter. But the thing is, like, the technologies that we were building were applicable to 3D and applicable to augmented reality, and we also started doing pro services. So rather than a platform that was democratized for everybody, if not everybody was ready for that platform, then definitely the innovators were. So we actually built VR and AR experiences for the big boys. So, I mean, we worked, with Microsoft and NASA and a bunch of other like bigger groups that needed this. And in that process, we learned what was necessary. And then when the timing was right, we accelerated the platform, and then now there's customers actually using our platform. And then we still have a separate team that's doing pro services for the big boys, like the big companies. And our findings from that then come into the platform that's made available for everybody. And the thing was also, basically everybody on Earth has a cell phone. Like, everybody's got a smartphone, right? Grandmas have smartphones, little kids have smartphones, and that's a computer, and that's a computer with a camera that's capable of AR. So that really was kind of that shift that happened, where it's like, if we deliver to people's cell phones right now, that will work. In the future, maybe there's glasses, AR glasses, maybe there's holographic windows in cars, maybe there's whatever, right? But like today, the smartphone works.
Kunal, just to back up a little bit, you mentioned timing a couple times as far as like, how mature technology is and whatnot. But going back to when you met, who ended up being, I believe, your co-founder, correct?
Yeah, Moody Matan, my co-founder and CEO.
Yeah. So once you guys connected, you put your heads together, kind of had a little bit of an epiphany. What did the timeline look like, and what were some of the factors that you had to consider to say, yeah, let's do this, let's build this business?
Well, we were looking at the projects that were ahead of us and just thinking, is this what we're going to have to do to accomplish each and every single one of these projects? Like, are we going to have to go through like a year-long process, hiring X number of people, and doing a lot of this stuff manually? Like, so that there's that feeling, that daunting feeling. We did, we asked around as well. Like, we asked people in the market, like, what was your timeline for things, or how much money did you want to spend on things? And, definitely like at the highest end of things, like, they have 6-figure budgets or 7-figure budgets. But then there's a huge like canyon where like people didn't have money, and then there were some people that wanted to have something for not a lot of money. They might say like, I've got a $10,000 budget, a $5,000 budget, a $20,000 budget. And that's like really tough to do for a 3D immersive experience. Like, basically you have a video game team, it would cost you $200,000 to build a video game team or that's working on that kind of tech. So we're like, there's a lot of business for people that could subscribe per se, to this. And I want to say we probably spoke to maybe 200 people to ask them, if you could subscribe to this, would you? And then how much would you pay? And we came to that, okay, like if somebody could spend, $10, $20, $25,000, they would want to do this. And so it made sense, like, okay, there's something there. And we were like, we looked around the room, and it was like, okay, we already had a team. We already had a team that was like working on this like NASA project. We already had 3D modelers. We already had, game engine programmers. I had my background within technology. I was also working for a SaaS company. Like I was a part of the founding team of another SaaS company. So it was like all the building blocks were there, and they were like, let's do it. There's only one chance to be at the forefront of a major platform shift, right? Like the internet or cell phones or whatever. So it's like, if we consider that that's what this is, this shift in a platform to more 3D, we should do it. And then we pulled the trigger.
I applied to try for BrandXR. I'm curious, we talked to a lot of founders. Talk about the strategy of the evolution of how you're, going to market. And you mentioned it a little bit, is that you're still providing services for some of the big boys. You're building a platform. But maybe you could talk about, for our audience, a little bit, is the go-to-market strategy and how you're, evolving from, I guess, this idea of services to a product and really trying to, scale.
Right. So, what we found is there's companies that want to have this experience, and they sometimes don't know how to build it, or sometimes they don't know what they want exactly. Like they know, maybe have 70% of what they want, but they don't know the other 30%. And we found that even though they wanted the SaaS product, they still wanted to have their hand held, or maybe there's a portion that they couldn't do. Like maybe they had the whole thing designed and sketched out, or they had the call to actions, or that they wanted to have a product shown, but they literally didn't have the 3D model of their product. And, we thought, like, okay, if we can plug in those gaps, then we can reduce all of the gotchas or the reasons for no in moving forward in business out there in the market. And so when we paired up pro services with our product, we saw that there was like more customer success, so to speak. Like, there's what we're finding is like there's an attach rate, between the two. So like somebody can subscribe to our platform at this point for basically $1,000 a month, which some people say is like not that much, and some people say it's too much. You can also have different tiers, right? But okay, if you were to do that and it's totally like, hey, do it yourself, maybe there's some people out there who can like totally roll with it. They can have like they already have their 3D models. They can like, type in everything themselves, and they can have, augmented reality like deployed to iOS and Android phones. But there's some people, yeah. And there's some people like, but I don't have 3D models, or like, hey, can you explain how we will create graphics for this? Or can you help me think through some things in my experience? Some of our customers have told us like, hey, I've tried other things, but I just end up wasting a lot of time because I don't know how to solve it. Or I'm suggested to go to multiple places. So like maybe they dealt with a competitor and they're like, okay, hey, you could just like go to Fiverr, or you could go to this, or you could go to that, and like try to like plug in the holes. But for us, it's like a one-stop shop, where because we have those pro services teams around us, we can just plug it in. And so then the subscription is a lot easier. And I imagine eventually the amount of pro services that people, also pay for will decrease. But at least we're kind of acting as a supportive bridge to all of the subscriptions we sign up. So some people might literally ask for $50,000 worth of pro services to go along with their $12,000 subscription, annual subscription. And some other people might pay the $12,000 and they might be like, hey, here's $2,500. I need this thing done for me. That it's just that having that is supporting the subscriptions. And I don't think I don't know. For me, I don't think it's possible to like enter a new market or build a new market unless you have that support.
I mean, we've had some amazing founders here where I think the same strategy, and I think more software companies should think of it that way, is that, you know, sometimes just the tool doesn't solve the problem and solve it well enough. And I think we've had a lot of founders that really found that magic where you combine product and service, you know, to still be extremely efficient, but also deliver the quality that's required. So I think it's really smart.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Like, we've had a lot of investors like beat us up over like, oh, you have pro services, like that, you know, that's a red flag, or like we don't think it's possible to like build a really great product and have pro services. And I just think to myself, like, what? Like, you know, we have multiple teams, you know, and you know, we're winning business. But I understand, like, generally when you have a small team, like if you're trying to do both, it becomes a problem. But like, you know, we had the history of like multiple game teams, and I actually recall like another SaaS startup years ago. They actually did video advertisements. There's a company called Vungle, and I remember meeting the founders there, and they were actually doing video production for their subscribers. So they would. This is like almost like early on, like when people are doing video ads within video games, and they were like, people wanted that, but they didn't have a video. So like they just had a bunch of content. So we just actually edited it for them and then gave it to them. And then they put it on our platform to be distributed as ads. And they were being beat up for the same reasons, saying like, hey, that's distractive. But they were just solving their customer problems and pain points.
100%.
And yeah, I mean,
that's what it's about, right? I mean, we're here as startups to solve problems. And I think there's an evolutionary idea to it too, is that you're right now solving a problem. And the best way to do that is a combination of product and service, but it evolves into where the product continues to become more efficient. And like you said, those services go down, and especially in something like, you know, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these pieces, I think, like you said, we're still on the upswing.
Yeah.
If the product's being built, and you know, when we get to that, you know, peak, it's magic when it would come together. So that's great.
Yeah. You know, I think I've heard this as a cliche, but it's like, you know, you're building the airplane while you're flying it. Like, I definitely have that feeling like a lot of the time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, the version that I always hear is, you know, you're trying to build the airplane after you jump off the cliff. And I always enjoy that. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Kunal, I'd love to hear a little bit about the dynamic between you and your co-founder, what that relationship is like, and then how it has changed in the business, you know, since the inception.
Yeah. So definitely I'm the more technical person, you know, I'm the CTO, you know, he's the CEO, and he definitely comes from more of a business and marketing background. So, I mean, he has an MBA, he's just generally been in those kind of roles. And I've definitely always been in a lot of technical roles. But the interesting thing is, like, there is a Venn diagram almost of like, you know, he's like definitely more business and marketing, and he's had experiences with tech companies. And we're relatively close in age, so it's not like he's like an older CEO or anything. But like, and then for myself, I have a computer science degree. I've been in very technical roles and things like that. But I found myself in a lot of sales and marketing situations, like over the past, 15 years or so. So to the point that I consider myself the least socially awkward engineer. And because of that, I end up in a lot of like leadership positions and so I led, tech consulting companies. I've had to do presentations. I've had to travel all around the world, like, meeting people, forging business, working on leads, like, and doing all that. So I kind of feel like I can live in that world, but then I have to also, maybe I'm better able to like go and talk to the technical team, to actually understand what's going on and translate what are the business needs, what are the marketing needs, why does it even matter, and then in turn, like, take the technical jargon, that that's on the tech side of things, and then bring it back to like sales and marketing into Moody. So I work as like a translator, on maybe both sides of the fence, and I think that's been helpful, and definitely over time, I would say like maybe that part has that need has probably increased, like because like in a startup as a co-founder, you have so many roles, and then there's the actual role yourself of like CTO, and so I have to like juggle both, where I have to think about the technical roadmap or the technical side of things, and then there's the co-founder side of things of like the actual like overall business and things like that. So I feel like there are two sides to Kunal, like, and I have to like balance both. Moody has become more technical over time, and and perhaps I've had to like think more on the sales and marketing side over time.
What does the process look like for the two of you to do your work, on the business? So the strategic planning, looking at 3 years down the line, 5 years, what does that vision look like? And periodically, how do you guys go about that? And then how do you go about sharing that with the team? And I do want to get to talk a little bit about your team after, but we'd love to hear how you guys approach that.
So we do touch points, like, so before it in the very early days of a company, it's like just a mess, like you're building product, you're trying to win a deal, you're emailing at all different times of the night, it's always a mess. Every startup is a mess in the beginning, and then maybe weeks go by or months go by, and you go like, oh shit, did this thing happen? Or like, oh wait, I forgot this part. Or like, hey, we need to think about this. And more not, it's been a little while now, but like, I would say in the past like year, we've become more and more structured. And so, we have, weekly meetings on like marketing and PR. We have weekly meetings on operations. We have weekly meetings on sales progress. We have an all hands meeting on Friday, because we were just finding that like you could go weeks and there'd be new features or whatever, and then the sales and marketing team doesn't even know about it. Like they don't know it exists, or maybe it was mentioned but it's not fully understood because everybody's always like heads down, or maybe they're in the weeds of what they're working on. So the all hands is kind of like where every aspect of the business gets a little bit of a spotlight on like what's new. And I felt like that helped out a lot. And it helped me as well. Like both me and Moody are supposed to know everything or know of what's going on in our own company, but it's so easy to be lost in maybe what's our main focus. But when we have that all hands, it allows us to kind of reset a little bit and go like, oh, that's the results of like, these cycles, like, or these sprints, or like, oh, that's the result of like what marketing is doing, or like, oh, that's the result of like what sales is doing. And oh, those are like 3 really cool customers that are like going to be coming up. Or even like, hey, this was a customer that we lost, or a deal that we lost. And why did that happen? So that highlight has helped. And I think it's helped the entire company, that everybody feels like they're more in touch, that what they're doing has like a butterfly effect, that reaches out into other departments, or other functions.
Got a question that actually came in. I'm going to jump in and share this one. But Michael asked, he just asked, Kunal, as you're structuring the startup, how do you avoid paralysis by analysis, right? It's so common.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your take.
I would say you need to have differing viewpoints. Some people are just more that way. I consider myself, I fall into that trap sometimes. I might be a little too cerebral about a lot of things. But if if you have enough differing viewpoints, sometimes you can just see like, okay, I got another viewpoint, and that makes sense. Let's go in that direction. And I think you have to set time limits too. Like if you have these weekly touch points, like you have weekly operations or weekly marketing or weekly sales or all hands, you can't go too many weeks without it now looking old. Whatever decision that you're stuck on. Because you can't be like week 7 of us not answering this question, so it kind of forces you to make a decision. If you say that like, hey, we have to make a decision within this week or within these 2 weeks, you make that decision. And sometimes it could be wrong, but like sometimes a wrong decision that's done very fast could be fixed. So there's a saying here, like we always say, like you can't edit a blank sheet, right? So like you have to have something down, and if it's wrong, then you can edit it. You can realize what went wrong, and you improve it, or you do course correction. But if you wait too long, it's only going to create problems. It's going to become a bigger problem later. So we try to do that. Like we try to have some version of it, some version of good, and then go with better and best later.
I love that you can't edit a blank sheet. I always talk about like well-informed gut decisions. You have to good founders make gut decisions, but they're based off of information that they've gathered and people that they've talked to, and they're not truly just like, out of the blue. I've actually appreciated, I have someone on my team that lately in meetings says, we'll talk about something for a half hour and there'll be all these different viewpoints, and they'll go, Andy, what's your gut tell you? And I think there is something to that as founders, that you have to leverage both and balance them, logic and gut instinct.
That's very true. Like robots can't replace, entrepreneurs and founders yet. And it takes a lifetime of experience, to develop that gut, and the synapses are firing and signals are being sent, and I think you have to trust it sometimes.
Tony's been trying to replace me with a cardboard cutout for a while, but it doesn't have as much good instincts.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's right. I'm always intrigued by, and we're kind of talking about this product roadmap. I think any founders that are really honest with themselves, that they talk about how hard it is to figure out, what is that product roadmap? What do you build? What features do you, put in the system? Which one, what audiences do we really cater to in our product?
Yeah.
Is there any way that you've gone about thinking about that?
Yeah. So it's definitely not the case that like we've mastered it, or we did the right thing. Like I think we made a mistake in how soon we let some users in. Like obviously, like you applied to be on our wait list, and I'll definitely let you in, soon in the next wave. But we had a wait list that accumulated almost to like 1,300 people, 1,300 companies, and I think it never should have gotten that high.
Wow.
It should be like letting more in sooner, in waves. And I think part of that is like because there's always some features that you need sooner than others. And the thinking that it needs to be 100% fully a cohesive, like beautiful masterpiece is not always going to be the case. And sometimes certain users really use a product because of one thing that it does.
100%.
Like in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or whatever, most people are only using like 5% of what its full capabilities are. Like you have people that have used it for 10 years and then realize this thing is like in the toolbar over here.
Yeah.
So I think like testing features early is really key. And it's true in the video game world too. You want to test early as possible because you don't want to go down a pathway that's like not the pathway that ultimately is going to work. But overall, like in talking to customers and doing these pro services projects, it does give us a lot of insight, because these customers give us their pain points. They're like, you know what, I'm spending. We end up building 60% of our product out just to try to win business. Like for example, if like it's an agency customer, right? They would tell us, we would have in-house teams that would try to build out, 3D XR experiences, and just to pitch an idea, they would have to build out 60% of that product. And if we could just like choose a template from your platform and then have something really quick, well, heck, we wouldn't have to like build all that stuff out. And then I would ask like, well, what is it that's creating that time? And they would say like, oh, it's this specific feature of like, texture swapping or something like that. And some of those things are way complex, but then sometimes it's as simple. It wasn't this, but like it could be as simple as like, we just needed this like QR code generated. And like that ended up being like something that just was naggingly like, trailing along in that project. So it was a case of like, if we just solved even like small building blocks of what were pain points for our customers, we would be necessary almost immediately. And so I think we've taken those conversations that we're having with our customers, with the pro services customers, and use that to inform our product roadmap. So if we know that, hey, there's this customer here that's using it and it's a major pain point, then are there 100 or 1,000 customers that have that same pain point? Well, we should probably put that into our roadmap and then prioritize that and build it out. So the allure is there to do like really amazing, complex, sexy, like features and just do it all at once. But like sometimes just the smaller features along the way, really like incrementally moving forward, is really the way to do things. So I think that's how we've adjusted our roadmap, is that sometimes introducing a small feature can unlock 1,000 customers.
I love that. And I just want to reflect it back for our audience in a way, because I've seen founders focus so much on getting the features right. And like you said, making it like a perfect product versus getting it out there and learning. And I think I think every founder just, struggles with that, because they do that, they have a vision for the future and what it could be. They want people to be really satisfied when they're in there, but you got to get it out and be agile and learn so that you can build what's right. So
yeah, it's a lesson that's learned by a lot of entrepreneurs. Like definitely, even having been through another startup that was successful, like you still learn more in terms of like every product that you build. And I've heard this, that if you're not embarrassed by your first release, then you release way too late. So like, the problem is like I think we all have good taste. And because we have good taste, like we want it to be like a taste product. I don't know, like we want it to be like really, really great. But you have to realize you have to let it out early and get the feedback, and you're going to be embarrassed by it. But that's just because, you have good taste.
Well, I always talk about visionaries. I mean, if you're starting a company, you eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. So at night, you're dreaming of what this thing can look like. Yeah. And it's hard to have that dream in your head and not be at that step yet, because you're still at the bottom of the stairs, but you see the top.
Yeah.
And so that's just it's a hard thing for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
Just diving into a little bit of focus on the team composition. So Kunal, it sounds like and there's probably more to it, but you have your pro services team, and then I'm assuming you have the development team. How do you how are those teams led? And obviously the pro services are kind of the hands-on ones, right? They're actually supporting the clients.
Right.
How are those two managed?
Sure. So we have a chief development director as well. So in addition to myself, maybe I'm more focused on like the product roadmap, um, being almost not in the weeds of like code, and just seeing like how everything can kind of fit together, and making recommendations. And then our chief development director like is actually leading the sub teams. And when I say sub teams, in terms of augmented reality, you have the actual endpoint, like say a cell phone, an iOS or Android device. So we have an app that exists that delivers augmented reality experiences when you launch that app. There's a WebXR version as well. So like maybe you don't even need an app, but you experience something on the web, whether it's 3D or AR. So you have a team that's working on that. And then we have a studio product, a web studio product. So that's where maybe you log into a website, and you upload your 3D model, or you design your product. You enter in the text, the descriptions, the captions, change the logo, the colors. That's on the website. So there's a team that works on that and works on the API that is used to communicate with the app and the website of things. And then we have the pro services side, where that's like almost like a video game team. We have multiple video game teams. So there's programmers, artists, and I would say a creative designer, / producer. And so that way, like whatever the project is, you have somebody that's maintaining that creative vision of what that is, communicating with the customer, and then the team that can execute it, which is just like 2D artists, 3D artists, and a programmer that can kind of put it all together. And then we use tools like Unity 3D. It's a popular video game engine that can kind of like put it all together. And there's multiple of those. So sometimes you need to prototype something very quickly, and that could be a different team than the one that's actually going to build it out like in a more stable way. So we even have that too. And yeah, and so we have some divisions in those teams, but of course, like we're all together in our office, which is called the Orlando Game Space. So there's basically like 20 video game tech companies all around, inside of our 10,000 square foot building. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it's a fun place to be, and in a way, it's kind of like our subcontractors are 20 feet away. If we have a skill that we don't have within BrandXR, we can just say like, hey, what is your thoughts on this? Are you available for the next 2 months? And they're like, yeah, I have an opening for the next 2 months. All right, like join, and then we'll work together, and then done, and then we separate, and they go back to building a video game or building something else, some other product that they're working on.
You just put out a plate of cupcakes with a sign that says, "Can you do character animation?"
Yeah,
and hope that a couple people show up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's cool. And I think those types of communities are really neat, where there's a bunch of similar companies and they can work off each other. Has your business been involved in like incubators? Have you leveraged mentors, and same with this gamer space? Is it, how has that helped?
So definitely like in terms of like mentors, yeah, we have we've reached out to mentors in the Orlando area, and then even the Detroit area where Moody's from. And that's just like asking for direction. Like, are we on the right path? What is your thought on this? Sometimes, we're not, maybe where we're technically proficient, and we don't know how to deal with a certain type of customer. Like, let's say like, we have some university customers, prior to BrandXR, I don't think I've worked with a university, but, as a customer. And so we did work with a couple advisors who've sold technology to universities, and just giving the lay of the land to say like, hey, this is generally how they operate. Have you asked these questions to them? what is this kind of feedback? So we have looked towards mentors, and I think mentors are so key for any SaaS company, any startup. You really need to ask people other than yourself, other than other people in the team, because they're just going to have an outside perspective. And so we've looked towards that, and then even being in the Orlando game space has been key, because you have to realize you don't know everything, and you don't even know what you don't know. And so when you can bring your product to other people that are within the same realm of, let's say, gaming technologies, you can get feedback that's more in line with what you could actually execute. Like sometimes, you might deal with a couple of mentors and they're like, I kind of know what you're doing. I know what the output is, but I don't know how the sausage gets made. Right. So like, you might not always get actionable advice like immediately, but it helps being in the Orlando game space because people know a lot of the tools that you're using.
Yeah.
Or the gaps that might exist. So like, we're not experts within machine learning, but like, if we need that help, well, I know 20 feet away, I can walk over and then ask that team that happens to work on that,
Yeah.
all day long.
I'm kind of curious to shift gears a little bit, and I'd love to hear, because I don't think our audience fully probably knows, but can you talk about what today is possible or what's being done with XR, augmented reality? And then second to that, where's it going? And what do you imagine happening in the near future with that type of technology?
Yeah. Well, I would say we're looking at our use cases in three different buckets. So we're looking at virtual education and training as one bucket, brand marketing, virtual brand marketing in another bucket, and then virtual product sales maybe in another bucket. And the features that we're building can oftentimes hit all three of those categories. And for example, in virtual training and education, there's a customer that needs to train new manufacturing employees, and they were using a book previously with diagrams, and they were just like little numbered markers that it's like, this little gear is this little notch is this, and so they would literally have to look at this 2D picture that represents a 3D object, and then like match it up. Oh, what is A over here? What is 3 over here? What is 2 over here? And that's how they had to train. And they even had a training center, so people have to come to a physical location too. And in ours, now that same group of people can launch a 3D object on their coffee table, walk all the way around it. They can still see the numbered items, like the points of interest. We call them hotspots. And then they can even see the 3D object like open up. And then in doing this, they learn the capabilities of that manufacturing company. So it's a much more immersive 3D way of teaching a new employee what this company can do. And so they're learning. Another example is, and I don't want to give any customers away or anything like that, but like ultimately, there is a use case of nurses that are learning basically the layout of different hospitals, and so they're learning where is everything located, what floor are certain things on, and things like that. So in that use case, you might have nurses that would have to learn the locations of 12 different hospitals within a geographic location. So what happens if a nurse misses the day that they go for training or they go for a tour of that place? Now you have somebody that's not going to know where certain things are. It's just going to take them a lot longer to figure out where certain rooms are, where certain things, are placed. Now it's possible to virtually walk into a digital twin, so to speak, of a hospital, and you could do that in the comfort of your home.
Yeah.
So, if it's 2 o'clock, on a Sunday afternoon, that person can like walk through a digital twin of a hospital and then be totally ready to go Monday morning.
Right.
Right. So like that's not possible to do in real life, easily right now, or cost effectively, but now you can. Or even just like use cases I think out there that are maybe like easy to understand is like, what if you wanted to book a hotel room, and you were deciding which vacation you wanted to go on, this one or that one, maybe to the beach or to the mountains, and you weren't certain what hotel to even stay at. Well, if you could virtually walk into the hotel room and look around and then just swipe on your screen, and then all of a sudden you were physically located in another hotel room that was like slightly bigger, and then you saw, oh, it's just $20 more.
Yeah.
No problem, buy. Right. Or you walk up to the window and you're like, oh, the beach is great, but then you like swipe and you're like, whoa, the mountains, oh my god, this is majestic, I totally love this feeling, I'm doing this one, buy. Like, it shortens that buying cycle, that decision making cycle, where like,
is there going to be where people can purchase right in that experience?
Yeah, completely. My previous SaaS company was a payment tech company, so I definitely have a background in payments. So it's kind of like I know some people, and so we can implement payments into these XR experiences, and that kind of leads towards virtual product sales.
Right.
So when you can sell a product because you can walk all the way around it, you didn't always have to go to the mall. You didn't always have to go to, a dealer lot or something like that. You could make your decision. And sometimes, like you mentioned, analysis paralysis, I feel like that's happening in the marketplace today. Like, I don't know how everybody is, but I'm a tab fiend. When I'm like trying to decide certain things, like I have like 30 tabs open. 300 tabs open, like probably closer to that. And I'm looking at pictures, I'm looking at reviews, I'm looking at like videos. Is this really how it's going to look? That sorry. But it's a case of you want to like cut that out. Like if somebody could just be like, whoa, I see it in front of me, I like how it looks, I don't need to know anything else, I'm going to hit buy. That part of giving confidence to a user is really where we want to get to. And I think that's where everybody's going to have to get to. Pictures and videos and a website is not going to be good enough.
Right. What do you think about over the next 5 years? What do you think is going to be really innovative about AR? And what features or experiences will there be that we don't even know are possible today? Sorry, it's Orlando. We'll blame Orlando on it.
Yeah, I know. So definitely today, people have iPhones and Android phones. They got a phone with a screen they can whip out anytime, and that will be for the foreseeable future the main way people are experiencing AR. VR will be more niche. Definitely, you got players like Facebook with the Oculus devices. So the Oculus Quest is now at a price point that people can afford. Like $299, you can have like a really great cordless AR experience. And so you're just going to see that coming out more and more, and the price will maybe even go down. That I think will be used for like super immersive experiences. I see that definitely a lot more for like travel validation, and AR will be used for like shorter experiences. But a lot of people talk about it. It's kind of an open secret out there in the tech industry is augmented reality glasses.
Mhm.
And you know, every major player in the market is working on it. Like there's things that have been publicly said, there's things that have not been publicly said, but it's like the writing's on the wall. So Apple's working on one, and it's like, well, why are they hiring 1,000 engineers related to optics? You know, why are they hiring executives from Luxottica, the largest eyeglass, manufacturing and branding group in the world? You know, you see Google purchasing straight up like optics companies, lens companies. They bought North, which is a augmented reality glass manufacturer in Toronto. Facebook, reports have come out that 1/5 of their company is working on augmented and virtual reality. Like well over 10,000 employees are all working on AR and VR. And you know, it's happening, you know. So like we see all of the acquisitions that are happening in the market. We see the employees that are being hired, and in some cases being in the video game world in Orlando and in the space, like even some of the people have been hired from here.
Right.
Well, and they can't tell us specifics, but there's always a wink wink, like
Yeah.
you can kind of tell by what they're not saying and things like that. So you know, if that comes out into the market, and I don't say if, it's just like when, then that's another avenue where instead of your phone, it's just going to be glasses that look like mine, ultimately. And the 3D will just be there in front of me.
Right.
It's like there's real reality where, you know, my glasses aren't there, but I put this on and I'm seeing the Matrix, you know, like I'm seeing everything else. And how that rolls out will be interesting. What the interface is, the different flavors that will exist with all the different companies will be key. Microsoft is a big player that I think people don't realize. Definitely in the HoloLens side, we have this that's being used in enterprise use cases. So hospitals are buying them left and right. The military, obviously, they had a giant, I think it was $22 billion like deal with the U.S. Army, and all that stuff is going to basically not only fund that project, but it's going to fund the prosumer and consumer versions,
Right.
as well. So I mean, it's done deal. Like for the next 10 years, they funded that whole thing, and all the research that happens on the military side will trickle down to
Yeah.
the let's call it like the Surface product line. You know, their Surface line of computers. There'll be a Surface brand, and there'll be a gamer brand. You know, for the Xbox, players. So you'll see this hit on all different levels of enterprise, businesses, military, government, the working professional, and then all the way to consumers like game players, your average Joes and Janes, and you're going to see it across the board. So that's going to be a huge boost to the market, and of course they're all going to have like several hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing and product education. That's going to help us, so we don't have to spend that, right, to educate people on XR. They're just going to ask like, how do you build it or how do you make that content, and we're like, no problem, subscribe. And then the other that I think is going to be out there is holographic windows in cars. So
I've seen videos of how that could work.
Yeah.
Such a cool concept.
The car will be a giant VR headset that you're just sitting inside of.
I have to admit, I was one of the suckers that bought Google Glass like 7 years ago, and man, did that thing really turn into a paperweight fast.
Oh yeah. You know, it's like Google's known for this kind of thing. Like they have this thing called the Google Graveyard, where you just go, like you just do a Google search for Google Graveyard, and there's a website that has a listing of all their products that they killed. And I think, you know, they gained data from it. Like I think they understood how are people using it, what were they doing, what were they not doing, and they were very early. I think too early. And I think they realized they now need like a consumer version of it, and they're trying, with all their Pixel phones. There's talks of like their own custom chip, just like how Apple has their M1 chip or their A12 chip or A14 chip, like
Yep.
that even they're having their own. So I think everybody's learning their lesson, and Apple and Google won the smartphone wars, and Microsoft was left out in the cold. So I think Microsoft's going to be fighting really hard, and Facebook is fighting really hard with their Oculus brand, and they signed a deal with Ray-Ban, kind of be the brand on their XR glasses. So
interesting.
It's a turf war.
Yeah.
The next platform, like Apple and Google's to lose, and Microsoft and Facebook and Amazon and maybe some others just trying to get in.
Fascinating stuff. Kunal, just in the interest of time, I think we could probably sit here and talk about this stuff all day.
Oh, yeah.
But where can our viewers find out more about you, more about BrandXR? Tell us the sites and social.
Yeah. So definitely go to try.brandxr.io. We would love to have people sign up on that to join our wait list, and we'll let you in waves. You can check out our website, brandxr.io. We're on social media, so you can kind of see some of the cool things that we're posting, some of the projects that our pro services teams are working on, as well as some of our customers. On Instagram, it's Made with BrandXR, and follow us on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn, we post a lot of things for the business community, so you can actually see use cases, everything from like augmented reality murals that we've done all around the world, to product education and marketing use cases too. So look for BrandXR on LinkedIn, but more than anything, go to try.brandxr.io and sign up to use the product. And then you can also find me just on the website as well, and reach out, and I'd love to talk to anybody in the audience about XR.
That's awesome.
So one last question. If you were able to go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, man. Well, if it's not like Back to the Future, like sports almanac style of like,
Yeah, no cheating.
No Biff future, right? Like, or buy Bitcoin, like very early on, not like, when it dropped. I would say I had some really good mentors over my years. I would say do that, but do it 5 times more. Like talk to even more people than you already have, and show people more of what you're working on than you already have. Because like I feel like gaining more insights is really key. Sometimes you can get bad advice, but I think if you talk to like mentors that have been founders, that have worked in product, that have worked in marketing, they will give you the insight and a different angle each time. And so like if I've spoken to like I think 5 good mentors, I would say just try to talk to like even more, because that insight will make you move faster in a lot of ways. And maybe that would have made it so that the product would have had a variant that would have tested certain things like sooner. So I would just say like, yeah, go for more mentors that have been founders and that have had different experiences. And I think that's extremely key.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Kunal. We really appreciate this. It's been an awesome conversation. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in. We appreciate the time spent here. So with that, guys, week, and Kunal, once again, thanks.
Thanks, Kunal.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you guys inviting me on to the show.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
See you,
All right.
everybody.
Bye.